He's an absolute evil man.
He is a cannibal. He's a serial killer.
It's not often you find somebody that kills for the pleasure of killing, and Sean seemed to be that person.
And I would be hunting. I was hunting for sex, live sex. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had urges and stuff, but I was able to sort of fight them.
Basically, I don't know what Sean does between 11 at night till 2 in the afternoon the next day, because I'm at work. But the last thing I would think he was doing is out killing people.
In March 2004, a task force was put together to investigate a number of unsolved murders in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
We set up the task force to investigate the 3 homicides. They were all very similar crime scenes. All 3 of the bodies seemed to be displayed. All 3 of the bodies were victims of significant cuttings, and all 3 of the bodies had body parts missing when we recovered them. The first one, the Catherine Hall homicide from the late 90s. The next one was the Johnny Mae Williams homicide in late 2003, and then in early 2004, Donna Johnson was killed. Additionally, all 3 of these women had lived very high-risk lifestyles, and they were on the street most of the time, so they were easy victims. Those 3 murders were being investigated by the Sheriff's Office. The Baton Rouge City Police Department participated, the Louisiana State Attorney General's Office participated, Louisiana State Police, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
There is a lot of crime in this town per capita. Based on the amount of people that are here, there's more crime that goes on here that should. It's unfortunate, but this is unfortunately a town that is high in crime.
Jim Shannon was a reporter for the local television station WAFB.
I first got to Baton Rouge. There had been more than one alleged serial killer in the area when I got here. So as soon as I hit the ground in this town, there had already been some murders prior to when I got here. There were murders when I got here, and there were murders after I got here.
The fear in Baton Rouge was incredible because of the attacking your mother, your sister, your wife. Women who lived on the street, who lived very high-risk lifestyles.
The Baton Rouge Police Department was under such heavy pressure by the public to solve these cases, women getting chopped up, killed left and right. So the pressure was on.
The homicides continued for almost 12 years until police got a breakthrough in February 2004.
The most crucial piece of evidence in this entire case was found right over there, and that was the tire track of the car, the last car that passed through that gateway after the body was dumped. And that turned out to be the car of Sean Vincent Gillis.
When detectives finally arrested Sean Vincent Gillis, he confessed to murdering 8 women.
He did mutilate the bodies of several of the women that he killed. He seemed to enjoy cutting them, and he did dismember and take body parts. Body parts were actually missing from the scene. Later, he did admit that he had actually eaten a piece of a body part that he had removed from one of his victims.
Sean Vincent Gillis is an absolute evil man, based largely on the way that he killed these women, the way that he mutilated their bodies, the way that he ate part of them, the way that he disposed of them. Just look at those different things. I mean, that guy, that's evil. That's pure evil.
Tell me about this monster. One minute you're a person like you are, the next minute you're not.
How did the monster choose a target, or?
We were in the wrong universe at the wrong time.
Brother would. I mean,
Terry Lemoyne worked at a convenience store, which was right down the street from where Sean Vincent Gillis lived.
I loved working here because I love working at night. And at night, I worked from 11 o'clock till 7 in the morning. I knew everyone that came in. It was basically quiet at night.
Regular guy, he was a store clerk. He worked for a copy company for a little while.
Sean Vincent Gillis's criminal past was wrought with DWIs, theft, marijuana, all kinds of small little things that he had done since he was 18, but things didn't really get going until he started killing women.
He had lived by himself for quite a while. His mother had left him.
And he somehow made his way into that particular compound and got to her. And that was very disturbing because you would think that when you lived in an assisted living facility like that you would be safe, but she definitely wasn't. With the Ann Bryan case, he attempted to rape her, apparently, according to what was in the police report, but it turns out that he did not rape her, and he ended up killing her because she was making noise. He stabbed her 47 times and almost decapitated her.
Now, what that says to me is that that wasn't necessarily a planned murder. However, out of fear, in the moment, Gillis escalated his actions to the point of killing Ann.
Despite his murderous tendency, Gillis presented a facade which kept Terry in the dark.
One day, I kept asking him to bring me to your house, show me where you live, because I didn't know too much about him. I worried about Sean a lot because when I first saw his house, it was a mess. And I don't know if he knew how to wash clothes. We had to tear the carpet out of the floor because there were so many magazines and books that were on top of it that they had just become part of the floor. The kitchen, there was food in the kitchen everywhere that was old and not thrown away. My sister told me, she said, you just had a curtain over your eyes, you know, you just didn't see. But I wasn't looking either. I wasn't looking for a rapist.
I think for Terry, avoiding the full horror of the details of what this perpetrator actually did, I think works as her coping strategy for dealing with somebody she shared her life with for 10 years.
At the time, I was living alone in an apartment by myself, not going anywhere, not doing anything. I have epilepsy, so I have seizures, which means I can't drive. It just got to the point to where, since I didn't drive, I had trouble getting to his house. So he would come pick me up, and sometimes we would spend all night either watching movies or talking or going through things.
It sounds to me as if Terry had a very clear idea of what she was looking for. And now what she was looking for was a quiet life. And what this guy presented to her and represented for her was just that.
2 years after meeting Gillis, Terry was keen to move the relationship forward. They moved in together in 1996.
When I first moved in with Sean, everything was going so well. And I had the silly idea to find out if I could get him mad. So I started a fight and I slapped him, and I wanted to see his reaction. He stomped his foot and said, girls aren't supposed to hit boys and boys aren't supposed to hit girls. That's what his mom had told him. So after that, we never fought about anything. And he gave me the idea that he was safe. Working at, and that lasted about 3 months. And he was right back home calling Mom and asking for money.
It was assumed that she was stabbed somewhere else and brought to that site.
What's the first time you had an encounter with Catherine?
The first time I had an encounter with Catherine Hall was the fact I killed her.
It was clear Gillis had a preferred method of killing.
He used what we refer to as wire ties, zip ties. He used a heavy zip tie that he actually took off of a sign at the store he was working as a clerk as, and reused the tie a number of times.
It's also believed that he engaged in necrophilia with her corpse, and many of the wounds were post-mortem.
Nobody's around, been sitting here for several minutes with this woman. It's either now or never.
Gillis was a sexually motivated murderer, and as time went on, he needed more and more extreme forms of violence in order to obtain the same level of gratification.
This is a crime where it's of opportunity, but you also have to have some means of getting to that opportunity. And then, as one of the later cases, disposing of the bodies, did not have those means. I did not have a vehicle I could follow at my disposal. I did not.
Did you ever do it in somebody else's vehicle?
No.
It was always in yours.
I'm sorry. Except for Catherine Hall and the silver piece. So it was Terry's car.
I really never noticed anything wrong. Sean hid everything so well. The only time I ever saw Sean get upset or angry even was because he couldn't get in touch with his mother.
I think it was difficult for her to make sense of it in her head about what had happened. You know, why would he do this to these women when she was right there for him the whole time?
About this time, I'm thinking, because Terry had said something, we had to go shopping the next day or something, which would have meant filling the trunk with groceries or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, it's time for me to say goodbye to this woman. At the time, and again, until after her body was found and her identity found, I did not even so much as know the name of this woman.
Having now killed twice, Gillis began hunting for his next victim.
Hardy Schmidt was killed May 30th, 1999. She was an avid runner. She would run through Pollard Estates, which is an upscale neighborhood in Baton Rouge. She also participated in the Boston Marathon. She had 3 kids. She had everything going her way in her life until Sean Vincent Gillis started stalking her. He actually ran over her while she was out jogging.
You say you watched her for a time. You say 2-3 months. What did you do? You just
I passed around the area, and I guess you could call it stalking after a while. I mean, she was cute. I really had no plans on doing her any harm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that morning, like she had done at least 6 or 7 times before, jogged past me.
You actually watched her 6 or 7 times prior to jog. She was always driving the same way, the same time?
Pretty much the same route, same time, every day, alone.
She was killed with a zip tie. He raped her after she was killed and mutilated the body. He also drove her about another 20 minutes to a different parish, St. James Parish, where he disposed of her body, but she was found not long after that.
One night he was picking me up from work, and the car had a very bad smell in it. And I asked him what it was. What is that odor? And he said he had hit an animal on the way picking me up, and that some of it must still be on the tires. I didn't think twice about it. When we got home, I told him, wash the car. And I went in and went to bed.
Usually a homicide is related to some other factors. They're killing out of the need to shut somebody up, or out of a gang war, or out of a drug deal, or there's, you know, any number of things, even domestics. But it's not often you find somebody that kills for the pleasure of killing, and Sean seemed to be that person.
Let me ask you something. Did you ever have a pager or a cell phone?
I've had pagers and cell phones when I was working.
At this point, you didn't?
No, I was no longer employed, so...
Okay. I was just wondering if you...
That it was company phone, company pager.
I'm saying, if at any point your wife would ever... Where the hell have you been so long then? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I always had business, some incredible story to tell her.
He is a cannibal. He's a serial killer. He's a monstrous murderer who also plays the part of a very sweet, innocent, non-threatening, safe pair of hands to Terry.
In Baton Rouge, Sean Vincent Gillis and his girlfriend Terry had been living together for 3 years. Terry had no idea Sean was a killer.
Sean was more like my child than a boyfriend. I felt more like I had to take care of Sean. Sean and I never knew each other in the biblical sense. He told me his mother had taught him that being with women was against something that God said you just shouldn't do. And so, who am I to question your mother?
What's interesting as well is that Gillis told Terry that he wasn't interested in sexual relations with her because of his Catholic faith. However, we know that simultaneously to his relationship with Terry, he was committing some of the most depraved imaginable sexual acts.
You just killed someone that you just about love, and then you're going to go get in bed with someone you do love. Even in this state of mind, I realized the repugnancy of that, and I couldn't do it. So I stayed up a little bit, played on my computer, played some games like pool, just played around, and then went to sleep on my sofa.
Sean needed to be listened to, and he wanted someone there to listen to him, basically. Mom was gone, so he needed someone to listen to him. And I think basically that's what my job was. And now that I think about it, that's really odd, because I never even gave it a thought. That we were basically just best friends all this time.
So he sounds, from her descriptions, like a very little boy. So somewhere within that dynamic, he has masked himself as this geeky little boy who's a safe pair of hands, but he knows exactly what he's doing. So when we see him unmasked, he's a murderous, raping, depraved serial killer who describes himself as having a monster inside. I think that monster is actually on the outside as well, who, when he's with her, goes back to his masked state. But he can only do it for periods of time when Terry doesn't know what he's up to. So he's pretending when he's with her.
Home life with Sean was pretty quiet. The job that I had kept me at work from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And then I would go home and sleep till about 2 in the afternoon, which got me up, and there wasn't enough time after that to do much of anything. Because right after that, I'd have to be going back to work at 11 o'clock again.
She told me that he was a very quiet man. He loved to be on his computer. She said he would be on his computer constantly. Even when she'd get off work, he'd be sitting there on the computer. He'd been on the computer all night.
Him to come to the same bed.
They have very separate lives, although they seem to live in the same house. They have very split shifts. He doesn't have a sexual relationship with her, which would be entirely normal with your wife. So he has an asexual relationship with Terry, but he has a highly sexual relationship with these women. He rapes them, kills them. Some of these women, he eats them. That is...
I just I don't see how a normal human being could do it. He seemed to enjoy it, so that says a lot.
Sean Vincent Gillis had now killed 4 times and got away with it. Now, for the first time, he started to share his perversions with Terry.
One night, Sean calls me over to his computer and said, "Come see this, see what I found?" And he showed me pictures of dead women on the site. And I just looked at him and I said, "You are a sick person." I thought it was a joke. I thought he was showing me to make me upset or something. So I did exactly the opposite. I didn't get upset, and I just said, "You're just sick," and I turned around and walked off.
You have a lot of gruesome crime type.
Yeah.
Picture.
Yeah. Again, not against the law.
In January of 2000, Lillian Robinson, a 52-year-old church-going lady who was very close with her sisters, got picked up by Sean Gillis in North Baton Rouge. Again, another potential high-risk lifestyle person who he brought back to his house. She was driven to the Atchafalaya Basin, and he threw her body into the swamp. She was found 9 miles from there in March of 2000.
So now we're seeing murders that are similar that are obviously have been committed by the same person. So it's like, oh my God, there's another one.
The other night you talked that sometimes you would get in that hunting mode.
Exactly. And I would be hunting.
And between Ann, Brian, and Catherine, I mean, there were times that you actually went out hunting.
At those times, pretty much primarily, like I said, I was hunting for sex, live sex.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I had urges and stuff, but I was able to sort of fight them.
In October 2000, Marion Nevels, a 38-year-old woman, was picked up by Gillis in Lafayette. He was on his way to go see his godchild. She got in his car, and he started reaching for his zip tie, you know, the old zip tie, and she fought with him. She jumped out of the car and took off across a field. Gillis jumps out of the car too, and he starts chasing her and knocks her over the head with some rebar, drags her back to the car, takes her to a car wash, takes her body out of the car while he's rinsing off his car and cleaning it out. And he rinsed her off too. Puts her back in his car, drives back to Baton Rouge, takes her out of the car, brings him in his house, takes a shower with her, then puts her back in his car, drives up to the levee, and dumps her body. And she was never reported missing.
In October 2003, Gillis chose his 7th vulnerable victim.
Johnny Mae Williams was picked up October 9th, 2003. Now, what's unusual about her is she was actually friends with him. They would smoke weed together. She would clean his house from time to time. He picked her up in North Baton Rouge and drove her to a local grill where he beat her to death, and then drove her to a wooded area, cut her hands off, positioned her body, took pictures of it before the police found her.
In February 2004, Gillis would kill his 8th and final victim.
Donna Bennett Johnson, who was 43, had 5 kids. Right after he picked her up, he drove her to a secluded spot off Scenic Highway in Baton Rouge. He grabbed the zip tie again, put it over her neck, but she managed to get out of the car and run. She ran into a fence, and he was in pursuit. He ended up strangling her to death at that location.
He took photographs of her body in the trunk of his car, photographs before the cuttings, after the cuttings, photographs of her deceased body laying on the pavement where he had taken her out of the trunk of his car and then put her back in.
Then he dropped her off on Ben-Hur Highway in a swampy area, which was actually right around the corner from his house. The problem with that is he left tire tracks where he dropped her body off, and that would come back to haunt him later.
Our crime scene people took cast of the tire track. We ended up getting a list of all the purchasers of those tires. It ended up being about 110 transactions. For Sean Vincent Gillis was one of them.
The day of Sean's arrest, the police came to the house. They wanted to talk to Sean. I asked him what the police wanted, and he said they were questioning people about some tire tracks that they had found, and his car happened to have the same kind of tires. And I just said, oh, okay. I said, you know, lots of tires are sold. We happen to have the same tires.
Do you know why we're talking?
We're talking because you had some tire tracks that possibly came from my car there.
His demeanor was very calm, very humble. You would never believe that that guy in that little body could have done the things that he had done.
Even though we didn't have a confession, the statements that he did make made it clear that he was the guy.
But detectives needed further evidence to link Gillis to the murders.
We definitely had probable cause to arrest him at that point. We did not because we didn't have a DNA match. Sean started getting impatient and was like, look, you either charge me or take me home. You know, let me go home. So we put him in a car, we brought him back to his home, let him out, and we had SWAT teams surrounding the house to make sure he didn't get away. Within the hour, we got a call from state police saying, that's the guy. The DNA has matched.
At home with Terry, Gillis was acting out of character.
That day, when I got up in the afternoon, Sean turned his computer off, which is something Sean never does, came to the living room, sat on the couch with me, and watched television with me, and didn't leave my side the whole evening. And I just looked at him, and I said, okay, what's going on? What did you do? You know, I said, you're being awful nice. I said, you're doing things you don't normally do. You're spending time with me. I said, what's wrong? I said, what do you want? You know, I just kept joking with him, and he said, no, nothing. He said, I just wanted to spend time with you. He actually came to bed the same time that I came to bed. And I told him, I know something's really wrong now. I said, you never come to bed the same time I come to bed. And he said, nope. He said, just wanted to spend time with my honey bunny. Turned the light off, and as soon as we turned the light off, the police kicked in the door and came in and arrested Sean.
He knew he was caught. He hadn't confessed yet, but I do know it was a very dynamic entry into the home, and he was taken into custody.
I asked Sean, I said, Sean, tell them. I said, what is going on? And I just looked at Sean, and he shrugged his shoulders, and he said, sorry, honey bunny. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, what is going on? What is going on? No one would talk to me. They just ushered him out the door, and the policeman turned around and looked at me, and he said, don't you know you're living with a serial killer? I laughed at the man. I said, boy, have you got the wrong house.
The police questioned Terry to decipher her involvement.
When Gillis got arrested, Terry Lemoyne was living with him at his house, the same house where he chopped up some of his victims and put them in a plastic bag in the kitchen. Terry Lemoyne, as far as the police were concerned, had to be a suspect. She lived with the man for years as he was literally killing women and cutting them up into pieces in their own kitchen. So how could she not have been a suspect? She absolutely was a suspect as far as the police were concerned.
I don't know what Sean does between 11 at night till 2 in the afternoon the next day, because I'm at work, you know? But the last thing I would think he was doing is out killing people.
At some point during the course of the investigation, we did sit down with Miss Lemoyne. I don't think we had any indication that she in any way participated in his activities.
Despite confessing to killing 8 women, Gillis was only ever tried for the murders of Joyce Williams, Marilyn Nevis, and Donna Bennett Johnson.
Sean Gillis was initially convicted of the murder of Joyce Williams in West Baton Rouge Parish. A year later, he went to trial in Baton Rouge for the murder of Donna Johnston. He was convicted of that murder, and I believe the death penalty was on the table, but he was sentenced to life in prison.
The other 5 victims, he had confessed to them, but they did not charge him with those murders. The reason why is because you don't want to put all the murders on one particular jury. The strategy behind that is, as a prosecutor, if you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, you still have those other murders you could try him with if you need to.
Gillis was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
I met Sean at a time in my life when I was alone and needed someone to take care of. And I think I just figured that out. That was the attraction. He needed someone. And I needed to find someone who needed someone.
I think Sean Vincent Gillis is a very weak, little, insignificant individual. He killed women who had no ability to get any help at all, simply because that was the easiest route.
In my career of 25 years, Sean Vincent Gillis' case ranks in the top 5 of sitting there and watching professional prosecutors do a job to put a man away for the rest of his life and to make sure that he never kills another woman.
Sean is not part of my life anymore. He's in the past, and that's where I'd like to keep him.
Một cái khác hay nó trả tiền đầu đi xung là 7.500.000.
Lục